Welcome to PBS 39 Scholastic Scrimmage. Scholastic Scrimmage is brought to you by the members of PBS 39 and by
Scholastic Scrimmage is underwritten by
Air Products and Chemicals Incorporated, supporting education, culture and the arts, volunteerism, human services, and civic programs. Air Products, a global company with a local commitment.
You're safe at home at Luther Crest, a Diacon senior living community in Allentown. Our mission is to offer premier accommodations and services so residents can cultivate a healthy and fulfilling retirement. At Luther Crest, we offer independent living apartments and cottages, personal care, skilled nursing, rehabilitative services, and more. Plus, the Luther Crest team strives to provide each person family-like support. You might say it's like a home run. Luther Crest.
And now your host, Dr. Karen Walton, Provost DeSales University.
Welcome to Scholastic Scrimmage. This is it, the final contest of the academic year. We started in October with 33 teams, and now we're down to the last two schools. Moravian Academy and Freedom High School have defeated 8 other teams to reach the finals today. At the end of the contest, the Air Products Foundation will present a $4,000 scholarship award to the championship high school and a $2,000 scholarship award to the runner-up. Let's meet again the team from Moravian Academy.
I'm Evan Burke, and I'm a junior.
I'm Gareth Messman, and I'm a senior.
I'm Madhav Shaker, and I'm a junior.
I'm Kara Chung, and I'm a sophomore.
Moravian's coach is Thomas Schoninger. And now the team from Freedom High School.
I'm Zach Warden, I'm a senior.
I'm Michael Samuelson, and I'm a junior.
I'm Anna Thomas, and I'm a senior.
I'm Emery Chevy-Erdis, and I'm a junior.
Freedom's coach is Michael Evans. The judges for today's contest are Sally Campbell, retired English teacher, and Dr. Gary DeLeo, professor of physics at Lehigh University. This is going to be an exciting match between two outstanding teams. So let's begin the contest with a toss-up in world geography. Pictured on the monitor is a remnant of what is believed to be a portion of an ancient temple. Moravian Evan.
Temple of Solomon.
I will go on for Freedom. It is revered by Jews as a place of pilgrimage and prayer. Name this sacred place. Mike?
Jerusalem.
It is the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem. Toss-up in mathematics. A resolution was passed by a ratio of 3 to 2. If 90 people voted for the resolution, how many voted against? Freedom, Mike?
60 people.
Bonus, paper and pencil. Take the number of pieces on a side in chess, add the number of pieces on a side in checkers, and divide the sum by the number of suits in a deck of cards. What is your answer? Mike?
7.
Toss up in language arts. Writing for The New Yorker about Bernard Kerik, the unsuccessful presidential appointee for Secretary of Homeland Security, Rebecca Mead notes, quote, Kerik, whose own nanny problems has emerged as only presenting symptom of a much larger career malaise, seems likely to suffer a more complete obliteration of his reputation, end of quote. Provide a synonym for malaise. Malaise. Illness, sickness. Toss up in algebra. Give the domain and range of the function. Moravian Kara, the domain?
Domain is negative infinity to infinity.
And the range is?
0 to infinity.
Are you including 0 or
no, not including 0.
Not including 0. You are correct. And your bonus. What is the inverse of the function y is equal to e to the x? Madhav?
The natural log of x.
Y is equal to the natural log of x is correct. And the next toss-up is U.S. geography. Name the river that connects the cities of Albuquerque, Las Cruces, El Paso, and Freedom, Zach?
The Rio Grande.
Bonus. Name the river that connects Pueblo, Dodge City, Wichita, Tulsa, and Fort Smith. Mike?
The Missouri River.
It is the Arkansas. Tell us about world history. World War I officially ended at the Paris Peace Conference that provided for the creation of the League of Nations. Moravian motto?
Treaty of Versailles.
Is correct, and your bonus. Following the Versailles Treaty, a German National Assembly convened to write a new constitution for the German Empire. What name was given to that liberal democracy that was named after the city in which it was designed? Motto?
The Berlin Democracy.
It was the Weimar Republic. Toss up in mathematics. What does the vertical line test tell about the graph of an equation? Freedom, Mike?
Whether or not it is a function.
Yes, and your bonus for 5 points each. Find the domain and range of the function f of x is equal to radical x plus 4.
The domain is x.
Mike, what is the domain?
The domain is x is greater than or equal to 0.
And the range is?
Y is greater than or equal to 4.
You are correct. Next toss-up is in chemistry. Multiple choice. When aqueous solutions of lead 2 nitrate, and that is Roman numeral 2 nitrate, and sodium chloride are mixed, a white solid is formed. What is this white solid? Is it A, Freedom, Mike?
Lead 2 chloride.
You did not need the choices. And your bonus. What is the chemical formula for lead Roman numeral 2 chloride? Mike?
PbCl2.
Yes. Toss up in U.S. geography. What state has Carson City as its capital? Moravian Kara?
Nevada.
Bonus for 5 points each. Name the city and state in which the Alamo is located. Madhav?
Texas is a state. City is Dallas.
It is San Antonio, Texas, so you did not get that bonus. Toss up in world literature. Her Greek name means all gifted and refers to the first woman made in heaven by Jupiter. The Moravian Evan?
Pandora.
It is Pandora. You did not need the rest of it. And your bonus, when Pandora opened the box out of curiosity, a swarm of evils was loosed upon mankind. What is the only thing that remained in the box? Was loosed upon mankind. Madhav?
Hope.
Yes. Toss up in U.S. history. Who built the first modern railroad sleeping car in Chicago in the early 1860s? After his assassination, President Lincoln was carried from Washington, D.C. to Springfield in one of these cars. Moravian Madhav?
Pullman.
Yes, and your bonus. Name the inventor who produced the first commercially successful steel plow in 1837. Madhav?
John Deere.
Correct. Toss up in language arts. Paper and pencil. Let's have a spelling bee. Spell sphygmomanometer, an instrument for measuring blood pressure in the arteries. No correcting yourself once you begin. It is SPHYGMOMANOMETER. Difficult to pronounce as well. Next toss-up is in music. Known as Old Blue Eyes, Moravian Anna.
Frank Sinatra?
Yes, And your bonus. This composer and lyricist team created many of Broadway's most sparkling musicals, with songs such as My Funny Valentine and Where or When. Their music compositions were favorites of Frank Sinatra, and some of his most popular recordings were made possible by this musical pair. Who are they? Mike?
Rodgers and Hammerstein.
It is Rodgers and Hart. Good try. Toss up in mathematics. Triangle ABC is Freedom Mike.
120 degrees.
That is correct. And your bonus, multiple choice, is an exterior angle of a triangle less than, equal to, or greater than each of its remote interior angles. Mike?
It is greater than.
Yes. American literature. Identify the author of this poem. When I heard the learned astronomer, when the proofs, the figures, were ranged in columns before me, when I was shown the charts and diagrams to add, divide, and measure them, when I sitting heard the astronomer where he lectured with much applause in the lecture room, how soon unaccountable I became, tired and sick. That's Walt Whitman. Toss up in U.S. history. Pictured on the monitor is a famed industrialist and philanthropist who founded Standard Oil Company. Freedom Zach.
John Rockefeller.
Yes, and your bonus for 5 points each first. Name the third generation Rockefeller who rose to high political office.
Who was the vice president under...
That was Nelson Rockefeller, in the second part of your bonus. Name one of the two most important political offices that Nelson Rockefeller held. Mike.
He was the vice president of the United States?
Correct. Toss up in biology. What is the name for protein molecules which are catalysts? Freedom Zach.
Enzymes.
Bonus, multiple choice. From the following choices, which one is not an important enzyme? First, pepsin. 2, gastrin. 3, trypsin. Or 4, amylase. Mike?
Crypsin. Crypsin, the third choice?
It is 2, gastrin. Second choice. Toss up in U.S. history. Among the achievements of this American president are the passage of the Pure Food and Drug Act, as Moravian Evan
Theodore Roosevelt
is correct. Bonus. During the Spanish-American War, Roosevelt was lieutenant colonel of what regiment? Madhav?
The Rough Riders?
Yes. Toss up in art. The two Egyptian sculptures on the monitor, one of a not too attractive male and one of a beautiful female, are of Akhenaten and Queen Nefertiti. What is the relationship between these two people? Moravian Evan?
Akhenaten was pharaoh and Nefertiti was his queen.
That is correct. And your bonus, the sculpture of Nefertiti was made to be viewed from all sides and is called freestanding. Akhenaten is carved on a slab of stone and was intended to be viewed only from the front. What is this second type of sculpture called? Madhav?
Limited view.
Relief. The next toss-up is in mathematics, multiple choice. The graph of 2x squared plus 4x minus Freedom Mike.
Hyperbola.
And your bonus. Give the 3 x-intercepts of the graph of f of x is equal to x cubed minus 2x squared minus x plus 2. No partial credit given. Mike?
Plus or minus 1 and 0.
It is plus or minus 1 and 2. Next toss-up is in British literature. One of John Donne's most famous poems is entitled A Valediction Forbidding Mourning. What is a valediction? Freedom, Zach?
A speech commemorating the end of something.
Yes, the judges will take that. A goodbye, farewell. Next, your bonus is in The Valediction, Donne devises one of the poetic world's most famous metaphysical conceits when he says that if the two lovers' souls are two, quote, they are two so as stiff twin compasses are two, end of quote. To what kind of compass does Donne refer? Mike?
A geometric compass?
Yes. Toss up in physics. In wave theory, what are the two types of waves by pattern? Moravian, Gareth?
Transverse and longitudinal.
Correct, and your bonus. If the period of a sound wave is 2 milliseconds, what is its frequency in hertz? It is 500 hertz. Toss up in U.S. geography. What level area in western Utah, created by the evaporation of an inland Moravian, Gareth?
The Salt Flats.
The judges will accept the Bonneville Salt Flats and your bonus for 5 points each. White Sands National Monument and the nearby White Sands Missile Range, where the first atomic bomb was exploded, are located in what state? Madhav?
New Mexico.
Second. What national park claims the lowest point in the United States as well as the highest temperature ever recorded in the United States? Madhav?
Death Valley.
Correct. Toss up in biology. Name the physical property that results from the tendency of water's surface to resist. Moravian, Madhav?
Capillary action.
Over to freedom. To resist being broken. Emery?
Cohesion.
It is surface tension. Toss up in world literature. Which wandering sailor created by Samuel Taylor Coleridge is cursed by the crew because his slaying of a bird is causing their deaths? Moravian, Madhav?
The Rime of the Ancient Mariner.
The judges will take or will not take the... it goes over to freedom. It is the Ancient Mariner. I asked which wandering sailor created, and you said the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, which of course is the poem. So you knew it, but answered incorrectly. Toss up in trigonometry. If the sine of an angle theta is freedom, Mike.
2.
And your bonus. In triangle ABC, if the sine of angle A is 3/5 and the cosine of angle A is 4/5, what is the tangent of angle A? Mike?
3/4.
Yes. Tangent is sine over cosine. Toss up in biology, multiple choice. A small molecule that specifically binds to a larger molecule is called A, ligand, B, cofactor, C, Moravian, Gareth?
B.
It is, I will continue for freedom, C, receptor, or D, inducer. Mike?
C, receptor.
It is a ligand. Next toss-up is in American literature. Eugene O'Neill wrote this play in 1939 about Theodore Hickman, a Moravian, Madhav?
The Iceman Cometh.
Yes, and your bonus. This expressionistic drama written by Eugene O'Neill was made into a film in 1933 with Paul Robeson as Brutus Jones, and it appeared as an opera at the Met in that same year. It was also choreographed in modern dance as a series of superstition-generated hallucinations in 1956. Name this 1920 O'Neill play loosely based on an event in Haitian history. Madhav?
Long Day's Journey into Night.
It is The Emperor Jones. That was a good try, though, Madhav. Toss up in world history. Name the 19th century work that includes this statement: the proletarians have nothing to... Moravian Kara.
The Communist Manifesto.
Bonus. In the Communist Manifesto, if it was correct, the Russian Revolution and worldwide growth of communism were inevitable. And communism would have emerged as a political force even if Karl Marx had not written what scholarly treatise? Madhav?
The Marxist theory.
Das Kapital. Toss up in grammar. Study the sentence on the monitor and correct the error. We are responsible for choosing the costumes and that they should all be the correct size. Freedom Mike.
The R should be were.
It will go over to Moravian. Madhav?
We're responsible for choosing the costumes and their size.
The judges
And their sizes.
will take that. We'll take that. A longer way of saying it, we are responsible for choosing the costumes and making sure that they are the correct size. And your bonus. This type of error is called lack of parallel construction. For 5 points each, identify the structure of the following out of parallel segments of that sentence on the monitor. We are responsible for choosing the costumes and that they should all be the correct size. First, for choosing the costumes. Madhav?
Prepositional phrase.
It is a gerund phrase. Second, that they should all be the correct size. That is a noun clause. Toss up in world history. Although lionized in many legends, this English monarch spent only 6 months of his reign in England. He spoke only French, reigned as Duke of Normandy and Aquitaine, and had a reputation as a great military leader and warrior. Moravian Madhav?
Richard the Lionheart.
Richard the Lionheart, it is correct. And your bonus. What was King Richard doing that kept him away from England? Madhav?
Crusading.
Yes. Toss up in science. The ability of a liquid to resist flowing is called what? Moravian Madhav?
Viscosity.
Yes, and your bonus. What are immiscible substances? Madhav?
Substances that have zero viscosity.
Substances that don't mix when combined, like oil and water. Toss up in British literature. Name the Joseph Conrad novel. Moravian Madhav?
Heart of Darkness.
Bonus for 5 points each. Name the 2 other Conrad works of fiction in which Marlowe is a narrator. Madhav?
Lord Jim. And Lord Edward.
You did get one, Lord Jim. The other is Youth. Toss up in U.S. history, multiple choice. The headlines read, Armory introduces modern art to the U.S. 16th and 17th Amendments are ratified. Freedom Mike?
1920.
Goes over to Moravian. I will continue. And Woodrow Wilson becomes president. Is the year 1905, 1913? Gareth?
1918.
I can't hear you.
1918.
It is 1913. Toss up in mathematics. 4 cards are labeled 1, 2, 3, 4. If 2 cards are drawn at random without replacement, how many different pairs? Freedom Mike.
12 pairs.
Over to Moravian. How many different pairs can be drawn? Moravian. The contest is over. The final score is Moravian 195, Freedom 160. The runner-up trophy goes to Freedom High School and will be accepted by their coach, Michael Evans, and their principal, Michael Laporta. Congratulations. The 2012-2013 championship trophy goes to Moravian Academy and will be accepted by their coach, Thomas Schoninger. Congratulations. I'd like to introduce Laura McHugh, Managing Editor of PBS 39.
Thank you, Dr. Walton. For 39 years, PBS 39 has proudly produced Scholastic Scrimmage, thanks in part to continued support from sponsors, including Just Born and Air Products. Representatives from these companies will now present checks to our runner-up and our winner. We'll begin with Cindy Glick, representing Just Born, and Cindy will be presenting a $2,000 check to Dr. Joseph Roy, Superintendent of Bethlehem Area School District, representing Freedom High School.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Congratulations. Next, Ken Laliwala is representing Air Products, and he'll be presenting a $4,000 check to Upper School Director Dr. Richard Crone, representing Moravian Academy.
Thank you very much, Laura. On behalf of Air Products, I'm here to present the check of $4,000 to the champions. First of all, just let me say congratulations to both the teams who made it to the finals. Air Products has had a long-standing relationship with PBS 39 and has been a proud sponsor of this event for many years. And to the champions, I present a check of $4,000 to Moravian Academy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So many wonderful people make this program possible. I'd like to thank the entire PBS 39 staff. Our judges are superb, Sally Campbell and Dr. Gary DeLeo. Thank you to the 33 high schools that support Scholastic Scrimmage and send us their best and brightest students. We thank the coaches for preparing their students for this demanding competition, and we thank these outstanding students whom we admire greatly. And most of all, we appreciate you, the audience, whose support is a tribute to the value you place on the academic achievement of these talented students. Our debt to you is immense. I'm Karen Walton. Thank you for another great year.
Scholastic Scrimmage is brought to you by the members of PBS 39 and by
Scholastic Scrimmage is underwritten by
Air Products and Chemicals Incorporated, supporting education, culture and the arts, volunteerism, human services, and civic programs. Air Products, a global company with a local commitment.
PBS 39